Have you ever left a meeting and found yourself replaying it hours later? You get in the car, you make a cup of tea, you're sitting at home, and somehow you're still having that conversation in your head. Maybe it was feedback from a manager, maybe a disagreement with a colleague, maybe somebody said something that didn't quite sit right with you. And even though the conversation lasted 10 minutes, your mind keeps returning to it. For example, things like, what did they mean when they said that? Did I explain myself properly? Should I have responded differently? Did they misunderstand me? Something I've been studying recently is why certain conversations stay with us while others disappear almost immediately. And the more I look into it, the less I think difficult conversations are really about words only. We often assume they are. We think if we just found the perfect phrase, use the right communication technique, or explain ourselves more clearly, everything would improve. But I'm becoming increasingly convinced that many difficult conversations begin long before anyone actually speaks, because underneath the words, there may be worries that never get mentioned. Someone may be concerned about their reputation. For example, in an appraisal meeting, when you as the manager are discussing about the colleague's performance, they may have concerns about how this will affect the reputation amongst the team, and things like this. Another person may be worried about being seen as incompetent, for example. Someone else may feel unappreciated when you're having certain discussions with them. And suddenly, what appears to be a conversation about a project or a deadline becomes something much deeper. On the surface of it, you're talking about something very practical, very factual, and it's black and white, but it's a bit more than that. It's not just black and white when you look into it. And perhaps you've experienced this yourself when the tables are turned and, for example, your manager is now speaking to you about your performance, or your your colleague is talking to you about a particular project challenge that's come about. And though the conversation may look straightforward on the surface, somehow it becomes emotional, frustrating, or defensive when you are about to be faced with, or you're facing, a difficult conversation around a topic. So after the discussion has been had, whatever may be a meeting, a a discussion between two colleagues, whatever it may be, afterwards both people may walk away feeling misunderstood. And the question that has captured my attention recently is, what are difficult conversations really about? So the question you may be asking yourself is, why does this matter? I think this matters because most of us spend a large part of our lives talking to other people at work. For example, managers giving feedback, there's team disagreements, projects run behind schedule, expectations aren't met, people feel overlooked, people feel criticized. And often we assume that the problem is communication itself. We think, or I thought, I need better words, I need more confidence, I need to explain myself properly. Those things certainly can help, but increasingly I'm wondering whether communication problems are often human problems. So, for example, imagine a manager discussing performance with a member of their team. You might even be that manager. So, the manager may be thinking, I want to help this person improve. However, the employee may be sitting there thinking, I don't think they believe I'm capable. Both people leave the meeting frustrated. Neither intended harm, but each person experienced a completely different conversation. Uh, and perhaps this is why difficult conversations affect us so deeply, because they often touch upon something much bigger than the topic itself. And these fall under some of the following categories. So, number one, competence. So, you may be telling them about, okay, this is how I want you to improve a particular element of their work. but they're looking at it. So you're looking at, okay, this is how you improve it. There's something factual, input equals output. But for them, they may be taking away that comment as they're questioning my competency around a particular matter, and they think I'm incompetent or less competent. It could be around identity, recognition, trust, even belonging. And our work isn't simply what we do. For many of us, it becomes connected to how we see ourselves. And that's why these conversations matter professionally, personally. So these are some of the learnings that I'm taking away from exploring this idea and this topic. And one of the ideas that have challenged my thinking is that two people can experience exactly the same conversation but be left or leave with completely different conclusions. So the meeting was the same, the words were the same, the facts were the same, but one person feels supported while the other may not be, and the person actually may feel criticized. Another person may feel ignored, and it's difficult to understand. But like for example, I'm thinking surely one person must be correct. But increasingly, I think both experiences can be real because we don't simply respond to events, we respond to what the events mean to us. A piece of feedback might feel helpful to one person, but to another, it may feel like a threat to their competence, and even extending that to their job security. Even. So, understanding this doesn't mean agreeing with everyone, but perhaps it means becoming curious. So, before having a discussion with a somebody you manage or a colleague, some of the things to think about and to be curious about would be what might this conversation mean to them? What concerns may they be bringing into the room? What assumptions am I bringing into the room? And these questions have started to change the way I think about difficult conversations. So there are surface problems and there are hidden conversations. So imagine two colleagues discussing a missed deadline. On the surface, they're discussing dates, deliverables, and timelines, but underneath, something else may be happening. One person may be worried that their manager no longer trusts them. The other may feel overwhelmed by the workload. Some may feel even unsupported. Someone else may feel they're carrying too much responsibility. And yet neither person says any of this. What's happening is they continue to discuss the deadline, but perhaps the real conversation remains hidden. And I've started to think about difficult conversations almost like icebergs. So, with an iceberg, you have the bit that's visible above the water, for lack of a better term, a large object, but beneath the water actually is the bulk of the iceberg, so something much bigger than what can be seen above the surface of the water. So with the bit that's above the surface of the water, these words are visible, but the deeper concerns often aren't. And perhaps this explains why some conversations seem impossible to solve, because we may be discussing different problems without even realizing it.